Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I am your co-host Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing a post-NFL Combine mock draft of the 2023 NFL draft season. Super exciting. A lot more information has come out, obviously, as we got to see all the top prospects come out. Put them right next to each other, see how freaking athletic some of these guys are that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. And it's always fun just to do mock drafts. But before we get into that, if you have not already, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment on what you think your team should do in the first round of the NFL draft. Ryan and I, we have a goal of actually trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by April 27th. I believe that's when the draft is.
Yeah,
probably check that out. Yeah. And so far this year, we're already up over about 220 new subscribers. So our community is growing. We love it. We absolutely love all of the fun banter that comes back from people who comment, who agree or disagree with us. It's always fun. So join the growing community, and we are looking forward to hearing from you. And also hit that bell so you can see when Ryan and I create new content. And Ryan, that being said, let's get into it. So break down exactly what we're going to be doing tonight.
So we're going to be doing a post-combine mock draft of the first round. We are going to be including trades, and you are going to go first. You're going to do your mock draft, and then I will go second and do my mock draft. Again, we're only doing the first round, and we are going to be using PFF's mock draft tool. So the board is not ours. It is just what is in there. So, so let me go ahead. Let me get this shared. And all right,
here we go. So let's see. Let's start out. We got everybody here. All right, on the clock are the Chicago Bears, but they will not be on the clock for long. I have been consistent with this trade. The more I think about it, the more I think it fits perfectly for both teams. Where if the Bears trade back with the Colts, they will get more of a haul than they would with the Texans. I also think the Texans don't want to mortgage a pick next year, even though they have an extra one, and then some extra draft capital, since they're so clearly rebuilding and need a lot more than what the Colts need. So I believe I put like a first, second, trading with the Colts. I would not be surprised. Maybe there's a little bit more if they have to throw in like a third or a fourth, maybe like next year or maybe even 2025 to maybe balance things out. But I think that scene would be reasonably fair. Also considering I don't think that any of the other teams would be willing to give up significantly more. I don't think the Bears want to go back past the fourth. So, and I should rephrase that. I think teams will want to be giving up more, but it's do the Bears want to go back that far? Yeah. So picking first overall, I have flip-flopped every single time on the QB. It's so hard to pick the difference between C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. Bryce Young, talent-wise, is there, but there's the concerns about the height.
Yeah.
Him actually measuring in officially now at 5'10" and 3/4, I believe, smaller than 5 feet 11 inches. I think is going to draw some concern. And this time I pick C.J. Stroud to go first overall and the Colts to pick him. It can honestly go either way. And then the Texans, you can honestly then put in, they're going to take whoever the Colts didn't take. So in this scenario, it would be Bryce Young.
Yeah.
And so there's so many different ways I think that they can kind of go about it. And are there reasons why they would pick C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young over the other? And also I can see reasons why they wouldn't want to pick the other guy.
To me, Bryce Young is the perfect quarterback prospect if he's 3-4 inches taller. Right?
But he's not. And so that's why there's that debate. And now officially we all know his height, what he weighed in at the combine. I'm curious how other teams are going to view him. Going to view that. But then there's other things, though. You hear his intelligence and how he, in college, like when he'd get the Monday playbook, it'd be like, I've already studied this. I think we should change this for this defensive scheme. And it's like, that's a college quarterback. And he's going up against only the best competition. So it's interesting just to kind of see, in this scenario, I did this. I did it this way. So moving on, though, now to the third pick, the Arizona Cardinals. I had them selecting Will Anderson Jr. here. J.J. Watt retired. And then I think some of the controversy that's going on now with Jalen Carter, probably just to be on the safe side, they're going to go with Will Anderson. I don't – and we're about to talk about Jalen Carter here in a second. But I just think either one would be great. I think Will Anderson would then immediately replace J.J. Watt. And so I don't think it's a big loss either way for the Cardinals. Or it's not even a loss. I just think it doesn't matter. It just might make the decision a little bit easier, maybe a little bit less controversy going on when you do draft this player.
I like Will Anderson to the Cardinals, even if there is no controversy there.
Yeah.
I just think he is that edge setter that they need. So
yeah. Speaking of Jalen Carter, the Bears are not concerned about the controversy. Also considering the fact that they just got an extra draft picks for next year and later, even in this draft. So I think that they still would pick Jalen Carter. And in full transparency, I mean, I'm all about innocent until proven guilty. From what I've heard of the situation, I definitely think that there is some nuance on how he will be involved. So as of now, in the long term, I don't think it's really going to affect his draft stock too much. Maybe instead of getting picked 3, he gets picked 4. Maybe he gets picked a little bit later in the top 10. But I do find it hard that he drops out of like the top 10.
Yeah, unless more information comes to fruition. But like you said, for right now, from what we know,
as of right now, I would be surprised. I mean, there are a lot of football players in the NFL, and there are a lot of people that played football in the NFL. There's been a lot of controversies around players, and a vast majority of the time, it doesn't really affect. I think a team's status on them, a team's opinion on how they play, what's on the field. So, anyways, this is now moving on now to the 5th pick, the Seahawks. This is my first major change, I think, as we have all seen, or at least if you've just paid attention to ESPN at all over these past couple of weeks. Anthony Richardson was an absolute stud, breaking all these records. And that being said, the Seahawks, I believe, don't need a quarterback as of right now. But who does need a quarterback are the Carolina Panthers. And I think that they can trade up, and they only have to bounce over just 1 or 2 teams. Mainly, I think just the Raiders, because I don't think the Falcons or the Lions are going to be seeking after a quarterback. And I think they can go and get their guy. I would say I would give up a 2nd, and then I would say, would you think a 4th would be fair?
9, 39, and I would say probably 93.
93? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would be fair to move up. I think points-wise, equivalency, that might be like – and even if it's a little bit off in favor of the Seahawks, they could throw in like a late – 7th rounder or something like that.
Yeah, but actually, let's do that. Let's put in 156 also.
Yeah, and then force the trade, just like how Roger Goodell likes it.
Yeah.
So I have them picking Anthony Richardson here. They have Frank Reich, their new head coach. The Panthers are rebuilding. However, if you're going to put a rookie QB in a decent situation to be somewhat competitive, this Panthers defense is really good. They can keep them in games, get a lot of meaningful minutes, and they do still have Sam Darnold. He is a free agent, but you can sign him for very cheap. You also still have Matt Corral from there last year, so you can have a quarterback competition as well.
And PJ Walker.
Well, he might be a free agent. I'd have to go and double check. But I think just the physical tools alone that we saw, I think gives a lot of people excitement. A lot of coaches and offensive coordinators and QB coaches, a lot of excitement on the potential with Anthony Richardson. And the one reason why I picked the Panthers is I'm not confident that the Raiders will have a draft pick here if they go and trade for a quarterback or if they go and sign for a quarterback. But the Panthers, I think, are more draft focused on the long term. Within getting a QB. So moving on now to the 6th pick, the Detroit Lions. I have them going corner here. And similar to some of the picks earlier, I still have Devin Witherspoon as my number 1. I thought Christian Gonzalez had a great combine, but I just think Witherspoon, just as of right now, is still just slightly better. I think he might be a little bit more a little bit more aggressive. So he had a great season in the Big Ten. And I just think that they'll lean that route more. So, but if they win Christian Gonzalez, I also think that would be a great pick as well. So, moving on to the 7th pick, the Raiders. And in this scenario, they still have not gotten a quarterback, but they've tried a lot of options. So now they have Will Levis, who I'm a little bit higher on Will Levis, and I think a majority of other people, only just because of he has physical tools similar to Anthony Richardson, and a lot of the things that is being said as criticisms about him, they also said about Josh Allen, and that seemed to work out decently well. Not saying he's going to turn into Josh Allen, but we have seen young quarterbacks who have similar tools figure it out in the NFL and go into the system and grow and learn. And it takes time. Like, they're not going to become Super Bowl champion team in its rookie season, but a lot of meaningful reps. I think he can grow from there. He could also be a bust. He could absolutely also be a bust. But I think here, if they haven't figured out the quarterback situation, where if they didn't get Jimmy G, didn't trade for Aaron Rodgers, didn't somehow convince Tom Brady to come out of retirement, so I think that will be the route that they end up going. Will be with Will Levis. So going on now.
Sorry, one point. Josh McDaniels, the head coach of the Raiders, was in love with Tim Tebow as a prospect and actually drafted him in the first round. And I actually think there's a lot of similarities between Will Levis and Tim Tebow physically. Will Levis is just a much more talented arm.
Oh, shoot. I'm a more talented arm than Tim Tebow.
Well, okay. Let's not get crazy. But
yeah, this is a serious talk show. Let's not throw in hypotheticals. No, I'm just kidding. I can't throw away trash correctly. So, anyways, moving on now to the Atlanta Falcons, my Atlanta Falcons. This is a dream scenario for the Falcons. All 4 quarterbacks go, and Tyree Wilson is still available in this situation. Even, let's say the Lions went Tyree Wilson route and everything else played out the same, then you still have Devin Witherspoon there. So I have that. I have them taking Tyree Wilson here. I think that they would be running up to the stands to go get an edge rusher here. I would hope that they also would still address the edge rusher position in the offseason. But at this point, though, that's the guy I would want them to take as an edge rusher. Will Anderson also, if he would somehow fall that far. But I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't think they should take Myles Murphy. Lucas Van Ness may be a little too early for that. But if they trade back, if they were to trade back into the teens, maybe take Lucas Van Ness there. I think that might be a little bit more appropriate. And so, but let me make sure I don't have him coming up anytime. Okay, no, I don't, because that would be funny if I did after I said that. So, anyways, so now on the 9th pick, the Seattle Seahawks, they are now on the board after trading back. And I think this is a perfect spot. One of the weaknesses of the Seattle team was their offensive line, especially on the interior. They drafted Charles Cross last year, their left tackle. He showed improvement, and I think that he can become a staple to the offensive line. Need to start to address the interior and maybe even the right tackle position a little bit as well. And Peter Skoronski has that versatility. He can go in and play right tackle for if you want. Also, he's small enough and agile enough and strong enough to play as a guard as well. So I think having that versatility is what is going to push him over the edge over some of these other guys like Paris Johnson or Broderick Jones, who might be specifically more a tackle.
Yeah, especially for a team that needs multiple positions.
Multiple offensive line positions, absolutely. Yeah. So moving on, though, now to the next pick. Right now, the Eagles are picking at number 10, but I'm actually going to make a trade with the New York Jets, who also need offensive line help. They had the 31st ranked PFF offensive line. I think this is where Mekhi Becton was out, injured all year. Both of their tackles, who I'm blanking on their names right now. Let me pull this up.
Morgan Moses, I think, was one, and I forget the left tackle. They had a revolving door at almost all the offensive line positions.
I mean, so they had 11 different offensive linemen to play 61 snaps. Max Mitchell, and then George Font were the two that played the tackle positions the most, and they did not rank well. So I think this is where I would go with Paris Johnson Jr. here as their tackle. Bring in more.
What are you doing as the trade equity? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So I think I did. So the Eagles need some more picks. So I think I did 13. I think I did the 3rd round, and then one of the. I think then the fifth one there. Sorry, I have trouble saying.
Okay.
I think that would be fair.
Okay.
To move up, because at the same time, though, I think that the Eagles would have some leverage because you look at the Titans, who just released Taylor Lewan, and the Texans, who are in a full rebuild and just drafted their franchise quarterback. So are they going to want help? So I think that asking price to move up above them goes up a little bit more. So they get a couple more picks. So, yep. So I have Paris Johnson Jr. going there. Pick 11, Tennessee Titans, as I already said. Taylor Lewan is gone, so they need to address that offensive line, and they just need to address the offensive line just in general anyways. Broderick Jones, I think, can come in and fit right there. There's who I've known most of my life, who's very annoying, that compares Broderick Jones to Trent Williams of the 49ers. And I think that if you get that comparison, I think that would fit really well into this Tennessee system, who really can only run the ball as right now, but also just need to build that foundation for whenever they go and get their franchise quarterback, probably in 2024. That's probably going to be when they go draft. So from there, I have the Houston Texans coming up, and I remember going through this. It's like, I don't really like this pick because I don't think he's the top receiver. However, though, the other guys are more slot receivers. I think it's kind of hard to build an elite receiver room around. I think that they're great pieces immediately. But for me, I think it's hard to pass up on the potential of Quentin Johnson.
Yeah.
As I said, I don't think that he is the best receiver in this draft. I personally have JSN at number 1. Jordan Addison now is creeping up, though, after the more I've studied him and having his experience overall. And then Quentin Johnson, just similar to kind of what we talked about with Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, the physical tools I think that can come with him, I think is why the Texans would go with him over maybe JSN or Jordan Addison, who are primarily more in the slot and not an X receiver as we talked about. I think you can move Quentin Johnson around and he can play all those roles. Is he as good as those guys? I guess we'll see. But the physical tools are definitely there, and I think that that's what the Texans are going to want to kind of have him grow into, essentially. So, but moving on, though, now to pick 13, which is now the Philadelphia Eagles after they traded with the New York Jets. And one thing I noticed after doing our season reviews of all these teams, with the Eagles specifically, their defense was very good. Defensive interior was very good. However, they are very old, very old.
Yeah.
And sitting here now, there is a guy for me that is the clear next, or not, is the clear next, not the clear number 2 of the defensive interior. And it's after he ran the fastest 40 of a defensive interior since was it 06. I believe he ran a 4. What did he run? A 4.9?
Like a 4.74 or something.
Something like that. Something ridiculous. Yeah. But Kalijah Kancey, I think, would fit in great. Have him around those veteran pieces to go along with Fletcher Cox if they bring him back. And then have Hassan Reddick on the outside. I'm pretty sure.
Well, and Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis as well. Yeah. So, which would be great, especially with how big Jordan Davis is. And you have the speed of Kalijah Kancey. I think it actually is a good kind of yin and yang, 2 different types of defensive tackles, I think, to go up and block against. So I think that actually would be a great fit. So now sitting here at pick 14 is your New England Patriots. And what do the Patriots always do with their first round picks?
Draft guards from small schools or trade back? Or do both in the same year?
They're going to do the latter. Yeah. So the Detroit Lions are sitting at pick 18, and they need to address this defense, particularly in the secondary. And who is still available at this point is Brian Branch. And I think that he would be the versatile athletic piece that Dan Campbell would love to include in that defense. Have him combined with Devin Witherspoon, I think instantly upgrades the secondary for the Detroit Lions to go along with what was already starting to be a much more improved front 7 with led by Aiden Hutchinson. So from here, I would think moving up just a couple spots, a first to third. And then maybe
that's a late second.
Oh, is that a late second?
Yeah, I think that would be.
Maybe to make it then fair is the Patriots then would throw in like 192. That?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think that's fair.
I would think. I mean,
yeah,
maybe 50. Maybe 55 is a little rich. Maybe they do 81.
Well, they also have a 48. Also, that on a point scale, that would be about the same because I've mocked this trade. before.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect then.
Yeah, we'll do 184 though.
Let's do that.
Oh, okay. And they take Brian Branch.
Yeah.
So this secondary with Devin Witherspoon and now Brian Branch gets
and then if Jeff Okudah can get healthy, I mean that defense was already starting to turn around, especially after they fired their secondary coach halfway through the season. So that Lions team is going to be scary, especially if they listen to me. So maybe that's why they've sucked for 50 years, if they've listened to myself or people like myself. So anyways, let's move on though now to the Packers. A lot of different routes I think the Packers could go here. I believe that Aaron Rodgers will not be here, even though I haven't mocked that in this draft. So I guess it's interesting how I'm kind of going about it, where it's like the Jets traded up, the Raiders also drafted a quarterback, yet I'm also saying the Packers won't, like Aaron Rodgers won't be there. So I don't know where else maybe he could go in this scenario, or maybe they trade and they don't give up a first for Aaron Rodgers, just considering the age and everything. I guess I could see that as being a scenario. But either way, though, even if they have Aaron Rodgers or not, I think there's a lot of different needs that they have. But the one that sticks out to me is this tight end class is very elite and deep. And however, though, especially after seeing the combine, and similar to like you want to have a 3-down running back, I also think you want to have a 3-down tight end. And Michael Mayer is that guy. He is the best blocking tight end out of the bunch. He's not as quick as a Dalton Kincaid, but at the same time, though, he has just as good of hands. He is bigger. His wingspan and catch radius is ginormous. He's had great success. I think you fit him in to go along with Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and I'm sure they'll go get another receiver later on in the draft because this receiving class is also deep as well. I also think now you have a great receiving trio. But on top of that, though, if you're wanting to run the ball with Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon, you also have a great blocking tight end to go along with that as well. So I think he would fit into this Matt LaFleur offense. And so I think that they would go with Michael Mayer there. Could also see them going with JSN if they wanted to really throw in a great just in my opinion, just the best receiver in this class to go along with the speed of Christian Watson. So, but anyways, that's for a different time. With pick 16 now, the Washington Commanders. It says they don't need cornerback here, but Washington, if I'm not mistaken, was one of the worst pass defenses last year, at least with yards allowed.
They were.
Christian Gonzalez falling this far, I think it's hard to pass up. I think he's just an overall better player than some of the other guys that are still available on the round, and I think he would be an immediate starter for them. So I think that would go well, especially then if you have going up against these divisions where you have a Brian Dabble offense going up against A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, then you got CeeDee Lamb as well with Dallas. You're going to need to have good corners to stick with them. So moving on, though, now to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I ended up going corner here with Joey Porter Jr. I think that there's not too many of these first-round corners that are left, even though there are some deep. This is a deeper cornerback class. I also think that any of the offensive line positions or defensive line positions the Steelers can address later, because also they're picking again in 15 picks at pick 32. So I think Joey Porter Jr., especially after Christian Gonzalez going off, they don't want to miss any of these more top-tier corners. So they're going to go with Joey Porter here. So now getting to your team, after the New England Patriots at pick 18 after picking with the Detroit Lions. Lucas Van Ness here. I really like his tape. I think he would be very explosive. I think that Bill Belichick can utilize him very well in this New England defense. I'm curious here, what are your thoughts on that pick?
I like it. He only really has one strong pass rush move, and he is definitely a bull rusher. But he's a really good bull rusher, and I think he would fit in well as like a 3-4 end, and be able to use that power just to kind of, even if he just wreaks havoc and moves offensive linemen around, that's great for running stunts and stuff. So
I think in that division that you're in, with how quick some of these guys are, these offenses are, the Bills, Jets, Miami, you're going to want to have a guy that can get to the backfield quickly. and I think can run over some offensive lines, especially also too as of right now. Like Miami's offensive line, they did better, but still a little weaker. But
Buffalo's
all those offensive lines,
and New York's was really injured last year. So.
They definitely all have some flaws. So coming on now to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the 19th pick overall. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't like this pick. I didn't really know which route to go with Tampa Bay here. They need so much, and yet I feel like taking a receiver would not be a good option. I don't like them taking. They could take a tight end because they did just release Cameron Brate. I think just because of the potential here, and they're kind of in no man's land. But Brian Breesy has a lot of potential, so I ended up going with him. They do need to address the defensive interior. There's some guys that are getting older as well, but I think with Vita Vea there, I think maybe that would take some of the pressure off of Brian Breesy in the beginning of his rookie year, kind of have him grow, get used to the speed and everything. Yeah. But that being said, though, there's not – I could honestly them trading back here, but I could see them going in so many different directions. That's such a weird pick for them. Like I've noticed that also like with the Steelers, not as many directions, but like they could also go a lot of different directions as well. I could see maybe if they wanted to draft a receiver as well to kind of go along with George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, like maybe go with a slot guy. So anyways, I'm going a little off track here, but these middle tier teams are really tough to pick for on which route that they're going to go. Because there's not like a clear single need. And so anyways, so what was that? That was 19. Now coming off to 20 with the Seattle Seahawks. And who do they pick here? So they went offensive line earlier with Peter Skoronski. So now at pick 20, I think they're going to focus on the defensive line. And there's not a defensive tackle that I think that is worth it for them to take here. However, I do still see Myles Murphy. And similar to Brian Breesy, I think he is young and has a lot of potential. And I think he can come in and be an immediate impact in that Pete Carroll defense. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go with Myles Murphy on this one. Maybe they could go corner there, but or maybe they could also go with receiver since it is kind of a luxury pick. Maybe they go with Jordan Addison or JSN. But I also feel like they could go and get a receiver here in the second round or third round as well. Yeah. They can come in and contribute. So, but moving on to now, Miami is not picking. So we're going on to Los Angeles Chargers, who are picking 21st overall technically. And this is where I absolutely love Jackson Smith-Njigba in this offense, especially now with Kellen Moore as well as an offensive coordinator. If you pair him up, let's say they keep Keenan Allen, and then they also obviously they have Mike Williams as well. So I think that he would fit great in this offense because then let's say Keenan Allen leaves, now you have Josh Palmer that's on the other side of that, and Jackson Smith-Njigba can be in that slot role and he's very good. You watch it say very good at finding the voids, finding where the zone defenses are weak. And just filling that spot. And I think that would be a great matchup with him and Justin Herbert. So
I like it.
Starting the run on receivers with Jackson Smith-Njigba going to the Chargers. The Baltimore Ravens are going to take Jordan Addison here. You've talked about Jordan Addison, been very high on Jordan Addison for a long time. And after watching some more tape, especially this week of him, one thing actually that really stuck out to me was the fact that he had similar numbers in two totally different conferences with two totally different types of quarterbacks and offensive schemes as well. And he was able to be very successful in both. So showing that versatility to me and seeing also in the film that what you talked about, that great route running, if Lamar Jackson stays in here and with the kind of versatility and also improv that happens within that Ravens offense, I think that would be a good fit for him as well. Yeah. So, and also I think that would immediately fill a need for the Ravens. So.
Yeah, he's the most polished receiver in this class. He's just slender. Like he's 6 foot 180.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. So the Vikings are now on the clock at 23, and I was sitting here and I just didn't really like too many of my options if I was the Vikings. I mean, maybe they could go edge rusher here. There's only one corner, and Deontay Banks. I don't know how I feel about him. I don't know what separate. There's not too much that separates him from a corner that they can go get in the second round. I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually believe that they're going to trade back here in this scenario. And the Giants, feeling that the Jaguars are going to take a tight end, even though they did just franchise tag Evan Ingram, but still could go and get some depth. I think they're going to jump the Jags, and they're going to take Dalton Kincaid.
Okay.
With this pick, I think that he is probably one of the best receiving tight ends in this class, and I think the versatility that he would add to this offense, this Brian Daboll offense, I think would help out tremendously. So,
what are they offering?
Oh, and that's another reason too with the Vikings pick on why they want to trade back is they don't have any picks, and the Giants have a lot. So I would say 128, and then throw in one of the late 200s.
Okay.
Yeah. That might be a little too much.
We'll throw in 177.
Okay, that's fair. Okay.
All right, forced trade.
Yeah.
All right.
And then Kincaid, scroll up.
Oh, I didn't realize he was that high on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
So maybe I'm curious to see how that happened. It'd be interesting to trade up just for one specific tight end. Now that I think about it, especially with Luke Musgrave there, but I feel like Dalton Kincaid has separated himself a little bit than Luke Musgrave. So
yeah,
Jags now sitting at 24 after being jumped, potentially looking at tight end, but the best guard is still on the board in this draft by a long shot, and that's what the Jags really need help with. Osiris Torrance staying in the state of Florida. I think Jacksonville would gladly take him. Maybe it's a little early, even compared to what some other people think. Maybe he's a later first-round pick, but I've kind of been of the opinion that if there's a guy that you really like that would fill a need immediately, you should go get that guy. It doesn't really matter what other people say based off the evaluation. So, sitting here now at pick 25 after the Vikings traded back, did accumulate a couple more picks. I know that they would be unsure, or at least what I said about Deontay Banks maybe being a little unsure about him. But now that they got the draft capital, they moved back, and he's still there. I think that they would take him here as they need secondary help. Patrick Peterson's getting old and is also a free agent. Their pass defense was abysmal last year. Defense as a whole was abysmal. Maybe they could go edge rusher here as well. But I think focusing on that secondary, I think would be a little bit of a better option. So moving on to the 26th pick, the Dallas Cowboys. Similar to the Vikings, how I think some of their main primary needs, like especially on the defense, there's a lot of good options here, such like as Nolan Smith or even Will McDonald. But I think they can go and get another edge rusher that is in that same tier of guys in the second round or third round. But what would be an immediate need and what would take this team, I think, to another level is to get a second weapon for that offense. CeeDee Lamb can't really do it all. And they do still have Michael Gallup on the outside, who is an outside receiver. I think Zay Flowers could come in and be that slot guy for them. They have a lot of good options as well. And then if they don't re-sign Dalton Schultz, they still have a good young tight end group. I think receiving weapon-wise, if you add Zay Flowers to this mix, I think it's a very compelling offense that a lot of defensive coordinators are going to have trouble matching up against. So, the Bills now are on the clock at pick number 27. For me, after looking at everything, their secondary is definitely getting older, and also there are some guys hitting the free agency. So they're going to go secondary in this scenario, in my opinion. Guy wants that I like. I think he needs a little bit of just time to develop. I think he could come in. But Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State, I thought he had a good combine. He's long, and he likes to get after the ball. And I think he's aggressive, which is what Sean McDermott defense likes to do. I think he would fit well into the system. So I think the Bills would take him here.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah. So pick number 28, the Cincinnati Bengals. After taking this pick, I don't know how I guess I feel about it. I have them taking Maisie Smith, defensive tackle from Michigan. I guess I'm stuck between him and Anton Harrison. That's the one where I was struggling back and forth. I picked Maisie Smith on this, but I think I might change it to Anton Harrison.
I would go Anton Harrison because they need the tackle depth.
Yeah.
And he's a really good one. He's a good tackle.
This pick, and I guess this pick to me, I think is going to be focused on the trenches. I think they're going to re-sign T. Higgins in the offseason, or extend him, I should say. And maybe they could get Luke Musgrave here as the tight end, but you can go get a tight end a little bit later. You can re-sign Hayden Hurst, who had a good season with them. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember, their cap space, I think, isn't horrible, actually.
No, they actually have really good cap space. They're top 10 in the league. I still like the Anton Harrison pick. One, I already selected it, but two, to me, tackle, you have like 6 elite tackles, and then it kind of drops off, right? Then you're going to more developmental guys, more true right tackles. Whereas Anton Harrison was a true left tackle in college. And he projects to be that at the NFL. So,
okay.
Yeah. You can get a defensive interior, and this class is loaded at corner. So,
well, and as we talked about this offline, is there's like within the first 2 or 3 rounds, it seems like there's only 5 or 6 like defensive tackles, depending on which projections you have. But then in that day 3, there's a lot of defensive tackles, and so they can go get a couple guys there.
Yeah.
Moving on though now to the Saints pick at pick number 29. This is similar to kind of one of those teams that I talked about that was in the high teens. They just need everything. They have horrible cap space. Don't really know what direction that they're going to go. If they're going to go full rebuild, try and make it competitive because the NFC South is weaker. Maybe try and do pseudo both. I don't believe that they're going to go with Tanner McKee here, even though I wouldn't put that. I'm not drafting Tanner McKee, but I have them going Antonio Johnson here in their secondary. They do need some secondary help, and I just think that's going to be the route that they go. I like his tape. I think he's very versatile in that secondary. He can do slot corner. I think he can also play safety as well. And so have that versatility, I think is what's going to make him more attractive. While some of these other guys, maybe like some of the edge rushers are speed pass rusher guys that need some development. While with Antonio Johnson, I believe he can come in and he can be moved around a lot on the defense depending on the need. So sitting here now at pick 30, it's hard to pick the Eagles here because this is on the contingency that they don't re-sign Miles Sanders, which is what I don't think that they are going to re-sign him just with the running back class this year. And with Bijan Robinson still sitting there, having the full 3-down back, you would move him around a little bit, but his comp is Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders, I think, went to school. I'm pretty sure they both went to Penn State and were on the field together and they competed. And so I think that you're maybe getting a better version of Miles Sanders on top of this. And now then you can go and get him for 5 years.
Yeah.
As well now. Picking him in the first round. So if the offensive line comes back, I don't think that their pending injuries are going to miss a beat in the running game. So I think that it would be a huge improvement overall. Not a huge improvement, but it would be an improvement, also long-term improvement because Miles Sanders is getting to 26, 27, and he's unfortunately going to fall off here in the next couple of years just because that's just the way that the running back market works. So lastly, now in the first round, pick 31, I have the Chiefs going. I would love to go defensive tackle here, but I don't. I feel like Nolan Smith sitting there and how fast he is, how quick he is off the edge. I think that he would be a great piece to kind of then counter Chris Jones going up the middle. Either him or Will McDonald. I'm going to go with Nolan Smith here just because Georgia played a SEC ball. So a lot of different routes that they can go there. But that's my mock draft. definitely leave a comment on what you think. Some of my picks were, the ones you liked, disliked, what you would have done differently. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
I like it. I think a lot of what you did is what I'm doing a similar thing in my mock draft. So I think we might have a few different pieces, like a few different players going different places. But I mean, this first round is going to be a total crapshoot. I think I might be a little bit lower on some of these guys than you are. However, I also am a bigger fan of guys like John Michael Schmitz. He will be in my mock draft, in my first round mock. And then I think Adetomiwa Adebariye is also going to sneak in there at the very end. So there are guys like that I like that I'm going to incorporate, but I think we're going to do very similar positions for a lot of these teams. So
the one, if I can go back, just looking back at it, I don't think that makes sense. The trade with the Giants and the Vikings. I don't know if that would make sense, even though we've seen it. We even saw it last year, where a couple teams traded up. I think the Packers traded up a couple spots.
Yeah, they traded
just to go and get Quay Walker or was it Eric Stokes? I forgot who it was. But just a couple spots that they traded.
That was 2 years ago.
Oh, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But whoever it was last year. So maybe, and then do they take corner there or do they go defensive edge? Do they take Nolan Smith or Will McDonald? Guys who I think that have kind of deserved a lot of late first round consideration. So but
and there are a lot of those late first round consideration guys.
Yeah. So. I do feel, if you want to scroll down a little bit, but those top, the more I look at it, outside of Quentin Johnson, only just because not really sure where he's going to fall. But I think those top 14 guys are going to be they're going to be in the top 14.
Yeah.
With the exception
I think Quentin Johnson is there.
You think the Texans
take him I think he's as elite of a prospect as those guys. Because if you watch him on tape and you watch not just his highlights, but all of his reps, he does a lot of little things well. The TCU system just isn't set up for him.
And that's fair.
To thrive. And so while that makes him more of a projection pick, I think if he gets in the right system, which I don't know if Houston is that right system, but we'll see. But I think he can be an elite, true X receiver, like a Mike Williams. They need to work on him on his jump ball capabilities and high pointing the football, because sometimes he does short arm it. He doesn't use his frame to his full ability. But I really like Quentin Johnson as a prospect.
Well, and that's why I went with him here, just because they, especially receiver wise, they do still have Brandon Cooks, but he might not be there. They might trade him, and then they don't really have anybody else outside of that.
Well, John Mechie.
Hopefully, John Mechie comes back and is the guy that we all want him to be. But then building around a slot receiver, or a guy who is most likely going to be a slot receiver in the NFL, just doesn't feel right. It's that'd be weird to take 12th overall, but to have the number one a guy projected number one receiver who's big and that can move around and needs a lot of attention, I think would make more sense, even if I'm not as personally as high on him. So not that he has all the physical tools that are there. So so that is my mock draft. Be sure to leave a like and a comment on what your overall thoughts were on some picks you like, dislike, things that you should have done differently. What do you think your team should do? And also hit that subscribe button as well if you have not already. Help out the channel. We have this goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers by the draft. We're already had over 200 for the year so far. We're at 550-ish total now. So hopefully we can get there just with some of your help. We greatly appreciate it.